Hey everybody, it's Alexander Dahl with Manifest Vitality once again. So I have another interview ready to go out, so we'll go ahead and get started on that one. There's definitely more to come, so I guess stay tuned. All right, bye. All right, so I'm currently on the phone with Brianna. She's somebody that reached out to me about the current interview series, and I'll go ahead and give her a chance to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Brianna Ibarra. I'm a singer-songwriter from Los Angeles, born and raised. And I have recently been putting out singles, some music that I've written over the past 5 years. And I've been working with one of my best friends of 10 years doing that, producing together, mostly over Zoom over the past year. Producing, and I also host a show called Artists on the Invisible, and that is on YouTube. And that show actually interviews artists, kind of like this, except we talk about the struggles with chronic illness, mental illness, and different invisible struggles that generally don't get talked about for artists. So I do that, and I also am an educator, and I work in the sync licensing world. So that's me.
Awesome. That's very cool. So I always like to start at the beginning, as it were. So what was it that you found in music that kind of made you realize that you wanted it in your life? And at what age did it really kind of set the bug?
Oh, yeah. So I had a pretty early bug for music. Music was always kind of playing around in my house, a lot of Motown, Beatles, I guess what you would call there was a CD called Mob Hits, which is basically your Dean Martins and Frank Sinatra's and Rosemary Clooney's. And I was constantly singing. Like, I don't remember a specific time I started singing, but I was always doing that. I had this really old piano at my grandma's house, the place I was living. And it was like super old, super out of tune, made from like ivory, like it was, it was like from the 20s. And I did not care that it was out of tune because I was, 5 and I didn't have any sense of equal temperament piano tuning. I just thought it sounded great. So I started writing little tunes on there. I started I'd had a very active imagination. And so I'd write stories and basically score my stories. That's kind of how I thought about it. And I wrote my first, I guess, composition at 5. And that was before I had any lessons. And that was kind of what signaled to my mom, who was a single mom. She was like, oh, we have to put her in this outlet somehow. So we actually found a school that was a nonprofit called LA. Oh, it's now called LA Muse Art, but it was called LA Music and Art School. And so I started taking piano lessons there, but I was very stubborn about it and would only want to play music I liked, and I'd only want to write. I was writing constantly, and it was kind of just. I guess I've always been a composer, but from the transition for that being a hobby, I suppose, to wow, I want to do this for the rest of my life, was definitely in, I want to say, middle school. I had picked up the guitar and started writing a lot more songs. At that point, it wasn't just instrumental. It was adding my voice in it. And I had performed at some open mic. And I don't know how I even got there. Just my parents were saying, you should perform at this thing, and trying to get me opportunities, which I'm really grateful for. So I performed at this open mic, and just seeing the reactions on people's faces and interacting with people afterwards, I was like, oh my gosh, I should do this more often. And so that's when I decided to audition for an art school. And that's pretty much, I guess you would say, it's history there. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Sure. So during all that in that time, was it sometime in art school where you kind of thought about starting to write with other people, or where you kind of learned that you might have to find like a producer to start working on music with? Like, how did it progress once you were actually in art school?
It's an interesting question. I don't even think about it that often, but I had a producer, like that type of path, like, oh, I'll get a producer and do this thing. It didn't really occur to me. And like I had always wanted, even in high school at this school, it's called LOXA, or LA County High School for the Arts.
Hmm.
I was surrounded by so much talent. Like in some ways I pushed myself really hard, like starting then, because like there's always going to be somebody that's like doing better than you in a way.
Hmm. Hmm.
But at the time I didn't even know where to start when it came to like making an EP and things like that. So I just started doing it. I just started recording stuff in GarageBand and like popping it on SoundCloud like pretty
Hmm.
early. I want to say I was like 14 or 15 doing
Nice.
that, like making a bunch of harmonies. And it's kind of funny because then I do a lot of like background vocals for people, and I really love vocal arranging. Like
Hmm.
that's one of my things. And it definitely started then, just like layering vocals with like, I don't know what mic I had. It was like some cheap mic. Um, but yeah, so as far as the songwriting artist career, that did start. I had an artist name. I didn't like my last name,
Hmm.
so I decided to go under Brianna Nicole.
Yeah.
And I realized that was way too common, and I scrapped that too. But um, yeah, the producer thing only happened, I want to say, in college, just kind of as a way to fill in my skill gaps I had. I still
Mhm.
wanted to be involved. I don't want to just like, I did have a song where I just passed it to a producer, and I was really young too. And it sounded like absolute shit.
Oh no.
It was just like, no, it didn't sound like me. That's kind of what I'd say.
Hmm.
But that was a learning experience. So when I'm working with my co-writer and producer Mark Pico, like I'm in every session
Hmm.
that he does. So that's kind of where that popped off there.
So you kind of mentioned things progressed more once you did get into college. Um, what was it like once you kind of got outside of that arts education scenario, and you really were starting to pick it up on your own, like, and it wasn't just something you're doing as part of your regular education, but you're also making it happen in tandem with, your day-to-day job.
Yeah. So I didn't go to a specific like arts thing. I was in a music program for composition.
Hmm.
However, I realized I was the only one of my peers that was really trying to do the artist thing, like as in getting gigs and rehearsing with a band and like going to the House of Blues, Hollywood, RIP,
Hmm. Hmm.
playing. Uh, and I just kind of felt alone in it because everybody else was, I mean, this isn't necessarily wrong, but they were like just focusing on their studies.
Hmm.
Um, but I really wanted to get out there. And if anything, I wasn't even expecting like a huge audience. I just wanted to practice
Hmm.
um, performing a lot. And so I did. Um, I'm so sorry. I just forgot like the main question.
Essentially, you kind of were getting there. I was basically just asking, how you picked up working on music and playing
Oh,
music,
yeah.
in your own time outside of school.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, college was kind of crazy because I was in a composition program that was very it was a bachelor of music. So it did have a lot of units, and I was very burnt out all the time. However, in the summers and stuff like that, I kept writing. I kept writing, but again, I was very burnt out and stressed and like depressed and stuff. But I was starting to develop my sound for sure. I kind of count those 4 or 5 years as like very, I guess, wood shop,
Hmm.
wood shop years. And then once I graduated, in 2017, I was just like hitting the ground, just trying to, I guess I had these goals for myself, like, oh, I want to play the hotel cafe and I want to play
Hmm.
this and whatever. But yeah, I knew that it was my front hustle
Sure.
as opposed to a side hustle.
Hmm.
But it was hard because like I had to survive, and so it always felt like it was on the side, or at least like with my parents or even some of my coworkers or peers are like, oh, like you do music like at night, like. And I'm like, no, this is like all the other stuff. My even teaching, even though I love teaching, like
Hmm.
it was to support my art.
Sure.
Yeah, but that definitely was in the front of my mind around like 2016, and that's actually starting when I wrote my first EP.
So you kind of touched base on what my next question was going to be. You mentioned that you are a teacher in a musical capacity. How did you kind of come to that decision to incorporate that into like your musical endeavors?
Yeah, I actually started teaching very young. In high school, I kind of dabbled in tutoring, but that was like in an academic like sense.
Hmm.
However, I had a middle school teacher that I definitely have to say like some teachers played a huge part in where I am today. And one of
Hmm.
them basically, I don't even know how he did this. I was 16 years old, and they had a summer camp in Lincoln Heights, Los Angeles, and they he basically called me and was like, hey, you like always are a really good leader in like band class. We had like rock band instead of like the regular band.
Hmm.
So we were playing like Radiohead and Weezer and stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, he said like you're always a really good leader, like how would you like to be like sort of on staff but under the table at this summer camp? And I was like, holy crap, yes.
Hmm.
So I taught at this camp, and I taught a songwriting class, and I also taught tiny kids like percussion,
Hmm.
stuff like solfege. I was already pretty I guess advanced in that. And I also taught group piano lessons. So that was like my trial by fire teaching experience. And I actually came out of it being like, I don't ever want to teach. Oh, and it wasn't like the kids' fault or anything. It was just like I got thrown into a giant class of like mixed ages,
Hmm.
and I was like, this is stressful. But what it really told me was I don't want to be a classroom teacher,
Sure.
and that's fine. So I started then, but really when I started teaching like I do right now,
Hmm.
was in college. I had a job where I was what's called a supplemental instruction or instructor,
Hmm.
and that basically meant that in theory classes and different music classes, I'd like sit in part of the class, get what the material was, and then I'd hold like study groups.
Hmm.
I'd hold those after hours, basically. And yeah, and I just kind of found that I was pretty good at it. And I was never always good at that stuff. I actually really sucked at it. So I felt like I had a sense of empathy for students, and I wasn't just like, oh, I've always been good at this.
Hmm.
But yeah, like immediately after college, I applied to be a teacher for voice and
Hmm.
piano, and I just started doing that. And I'm here now, and I have like a private studio
Hmm.
at this point, which was my goal.
So what are some like really like standout important moments that you've encountered and experienced throughout like all of your tenure in music, whether it be playing or teaching or recording?
The the first one that stands out to me was in eighth grade. I was performing at a piano recital or something, and the drum instructor from the LA Music and Art School um, was talking to me about my music or like my interests, and he was like, do you like the Beatles? And I'm like, yeah, George Harrison's my favorite. And he said, no kidding, would you like to learn North Indian music, because George Harrison did? And I said, Hell yeah, I don't care. Like, I'm in eighth grade. I don't have any like extracurriculars right now.
Hmm.
So I participated in this amazing ensemble where I was mainly a guitar player and singer, but then I took twice weekly. Like I think about this now, I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. Um, I took twice weekly sitar lessons, and I took sitar for 2 years, in from eighth grade to like 11th grade, and that experience, I think about all the time, and so much of my way of looking at music is sometimes through an Eastern lens, and I'm very grateful to that random encounter.
Sure.
And it was free too. It was a an LA Cultural Affairs free service. That was definitely one. Another one was I was in vocal jazz choir in high school, and that was a crazy experience because it was like they had a reputation and it was really hard music. But when I went to one of the festivals that we go to, which is Monterey Jazz Festival, I decided to audition on a whim. And it's not really a whim, but it was more like I got sick and I was like, I shouldn't audition for this.
Hmm.
Like my voice sounds horrible, but my gut told me, you know what, just do it. They don't know your voice at all. So, I
Hmm.
mean, maybe they just think you're raspy or something. So I did the audition, and I happened to get the spot for this next generation jazz orchestra.
Hmm.
And that was a huge deal at the time because people were auditioning from all over the country, and I got it.
Sure.
And
Yeah, that's
it,
very cool.
and so that led to actually a tour, and I had never toured in my life, not
Hmm.
even like for choirs or anything at that point. It was right before college, so this summer before. We toured New York City. We like played the Standard, and unfortunately that's gone now. It's really sad.
Hmm.
Um, the Standard in New York. We went to Boston to perform for like Berkeley,
Hmm.
like the school, and yeah, and then we went to the Montreal Jazz Festival, and I did that, and it was just crazy because at the time I didn't see myself, and also I was a jazz singer at that time.
Hmm.
I still am, but at that time I didn't see myself as the best singer, but
Hmm.
somebody saw something in me, and so did the director of that. Like,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great opportunity.
oh yeah, so those are the two the big ones that stand out.
So I want to give you the opportunity to put out some of your links, anywhere people can click on and take a listen to the stuff you're working on.
Wonderful. So I just released a single, and it's on every streaming thing. I also have it on Bandcamp. If you want to support me, those Bandcamp sales are going like directly to the next single.
Hmm.
And that one's called Nothing's Easy. I'm actually releasing a lyric video on that this week.
Hmm.
So it's good to keep an eye out for that. But as to keep in touch with all that, it's best to actually follow me on Instagram,
Hmm.
which is at Brianna Ibarra Music. That's 2 N's and 2 R's. And let's see, I also have a mailing list, which I'm very active on. So I give my mailing list people free downloads of
Hmm.
demos. They see like behind the scenes footage because I record all my
Hmm.
Zoom sessions
That's pretty cool.
my Zoom production sessions. So I cut them all together, and my email list gets to see like all our antics.
Awesome.
um, yeah, so definitely Instagram, my mailing list, and if you're a Spotify listener, definitely stream my single that just came out.
Very cool. And so I always like to give the person that I'm interviewing their opportunity to put out like their last word. So a message that you feel kind of resonates with you.
Yeah, I think what's been popping up for me recently is to just have grace with yourself, especially now. I had a really rough year, as a lot of people have, and just being okay with the weeks or months that you just need to rest, And if you need to think about it this way, you could think about that time as really benefiting the time when you're active, because we can't just be going on this hamster wheel like constantly. So that it also includes like and anything that you're dealing with, and to give yourself that grace that it's not, what's it called? Healing is not on a timeline, and also your life and career is not on a linear timeline. So just be gentle with yourself.